Will now come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk Golick, roll call.
Markovich. Here. Spitali.
Here.
Vanez.
Here.
Kalwinski.
Here.
Ulaki.
Here.
Higgs.
Here.
Emerson.
Here.
Enosa.
Here.
Opinker.
Here.
Moving on to number 3, reading of minutes.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for September 23rd, 2013, and a special meeting that was held October 14th, 2013. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Emerson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes passed. Moving on to number 4, approval of claims.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
move for approval of claims for September 18, 2013 to October 23, 2013 for council meeting October 28, 2013. Beginning with claims dated 9/24/13 and ending with claims dated 10/23/13, claim number 4691 through claim number 5347 inclusive, for a total of $10,850,697.62. I so move.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Markovich, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vanez.
I would like to delay the payment of claim number 5288 in the amount of $405 until after November 15th.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilwoman Vanez, second by Councilman Markovich to pull claim, was that 5788?
5288.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I'd like to see a copy of claim number 4837.
We don't have the claims there, Councilman Higgs. We don't have the claims in the chambers.
Mr. President,
Mayor?
that claims for Ishman and Associates. For years, we'd had a full-time employee in the Human Relations Commission. A couple years back, or maybe a year and a half ago, we went with a contract employee. That was one of those positions that having a full-time employee with benefits, it didn't make a lot of sense to continue to staff a full-timer with benefits when, in fact, there's probably not enough work in that department for a full-time employee. So we cut back. We went with the Hammond employee, or Hammond resident, Jean Ishman, who's an expert in this line of work, and she's been doing that job on a part-time basis, on a contractual basis, for at least a year. That's what that claims for, Councilman Higgs.
Thank you for your explanation, Mayor.
Okay, on the omitted claims, pulling claim 5288, Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vanez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
No.
Opinker.
Yes? That amendment passes 8-1. Now, Clerk Golick, on the claims as written.
Claims as amended. Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vanez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes? Claims as amended passes 9-0. Now the public hearing for 2014 Civil City Salary Ordinance 1343 and 2014 Police and Fire Salary Ordinance 1344 are now open. Anybody wishing to comment on the salary ordinances, please step to the podium. State your name, address. Anybody like to speak on 2014 Civil City Salary Ordinance 1343 or 2014 Police and Fire Salary Ordinance 1344? Seeing none, hearing none, public hearing is now over. Moving on to number 6, communications.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I received a communication that's directed, I guess it was sent to the council. It says Hammond Human Relations Commission to Mayor Thomas McDermott from Ron Mullins, Chairman of the Hammond Human Relations Commission, dated October 3rd, 2013. Letter received by the commission, the enclosed letter was mailed to the Hammond Human Relations Commission, and the commission meeting held on October 2nd, 2013. The commission asked that the letter be forwarded to the people and the organizations who were mentioned in this letter. It says, as I sit back and watch the political insignificance in Hammond, it's amazing what one sees when the veil comes off. We receive sight into the future holds for the citizens of Hammond. Here we have an organization such as the NAACP that gives awards to people to either work in the politics or have association with those who have clout in the political arena. In my youth, I was under the impression and always believed that the NAACP was for the advancement of colored people. Can anyone tell the uninformed, ignorant people what their mission or purpose is since we have entered into the new millennium? When one receives an award under normal circumstances, their accomplishments are usually noted by the media. Someone notices, goes by cover story, bio, or something. Are people up for awards because of who they are and not for the contributions they have made in the community or people's lives? Help me with this. Quote, are their awards recyclable? Has it even crossed anyone's mind that the Hammond NAACP has low participation because there's no obligation to the community? Unless you, the member of certain churches, families, or make large monetary donations, you are not worthy. At least that's the impression one gets. It's sad to say that one of all the awards given, only 2 people usually deserve it. But I'll let you figure who those people are. You have the school system that's falling apart, a community center on the edge, a mayor who could care less for blacks in their community. Ministers are in the political circle, undercover and receiving perks, thinking no one knows. No more Walmarts, Napleton buses, health department, Burger King, KFC, taxi cabs, Dairy Queen, minorities fired from the city positions, and not a peep from the NAACP ministers, ACLU, nothing. And you think people want to be associated with a group of non-actives? I think not. I could go on with a list of incidents, but what good would it do? Question. I do recall attending a meet and greet, and comments were made that I had to think on. And I did find and read the Willie Lynch letter. Suits you all to the T. I see. Find some old rosters of past members, some family members who held the same churches for years makes you wonder. Oh, comment about the long obituary makes sense. After viewing the old roster, you really can find almost anything at the Hammond Public Library. Oops, we almost lost. Don't have or just saying. See you next time around. Then it's enclosed is a Willie Lynch letter, which I won't read. And there is a list of organizations that receive contributions. Very interesting.
Any other communications?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
since we were quoting some months back previously in regards to the prayer being ministered here in the council chambers, and I was very adamant about continuing the prayer here in our council chambers, and the question came up as whether or not we would be sued. Well, guess what? We had an issue with parking, and there's a lawsuit being filed by Aquavor. So make that part of the record that there's a lawsuit being filed by Aquavor.
Any other communications?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines?
in reference to the letter that the councilman read, I did receive that letter. Ron Mullins, who is president of the Human Relations Commission, is a kind and fair man, and he felt as if everyone who was mentioned on those 4 pieces of paper that we received should be notified. So I was notified. First of all, I feel it's very inappropriate to read a letter at a council meeting that was written anonymously. It was fractured, it was inflammatory, and it just should not have been read in public.
Mr. President.
I'm not finished. In reference to the second page that's on there, the offensive language that was included in that second part of the letter that you chose not to read is very inflammatory and does nothing but perpetuate racism. With regard to the list of names that were included in that letter, the list of names that were included in that letter were all recipients of a grant that came through the mayor's office. It's the mayor's gaming grant. Anyone can apply for that grant as long as they are a not-for-profit organization. The thing that I question about that list is that the list has the name of the organization, it has the name of the contact's address, the tax ID number. All of that information had to come from somewhere, and that's very suspicious. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it, except other than the fact that this would have never been brought up had an anonymous letter not been read in the council chamber.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
first and foremost, let me say this. I personally feel attacked, abused, and misused. So that goes without saying. Racism is still prevalent in this community. So let's not kid ourselves, okay? The reality of it is racism still exists. And it happens. Now, the reality of it, whoever wrote the letter, that's on them. But the fact remains the same. Now, I don't have the authority because I'm not the mayor, how he distributes his money. That's totally up to the mayor. I don't have a problem with that. But the facts in this letter are very much true. And I totally agree with it.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor?
so the fact that the mayor doesn't care about the African-American community is true, Councilman Higgs?
Mayor, this is what the letter,
Answer the question, Higgs.
this is what the letter is saying.
Hey, Councilman Higgs, it was an anonymous letter.
This is what the letter is saying. So if that's the way you perceive it, have I told you that? Have I had comments with
said
you
all the
in
facts
regards
in
to
the letter
this?
are true. All right, Councilman Higgs, you shouldn't have read an anonymous letter out in front of the
I
council.
will read anything that's corresponded that's
You
sent
probably
to
know who
me.
sent the letter, that's why.
Okay?
Right?
And anything that I have to say to you, I've already approached you with it, so that has no bearing on it, okay? I simply read the letter because I received the letter and I felt it needed to be read, okay? All right.
Thank you. Any other communications? Communications is now closed. Moving on to number 7, committee reports.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
I'm going to bring out 1343, 1344, 1345, 1346, 1347, and 1333. Am I missing one?
I know
One
it's
more?
funny.
40. 40
Racism
and
still exists.
1340.
Any other committee reports? Any other committee reports? Committee reports is now closed.
1340. It's funny. I'm only black up here.
Number 8, ordinance third and final passage. Clerk Golick.
Ordinance number 13-33, the 2014 budget proposal.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
move for final passage of 13-33.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Kowinski, second by Councilman Spitali. Final passage of 1333. Is there any discussion? Any discussion on 1333?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
the only thing that I would have concerns about is we don't know if the negotiations between the police and fire department and all the other unions have been accomplished. And I don't know how it's built in or anything else, or what's going to happen later on as far as if there's any cushion built in other line items. The only other thing is some people are going to get more than 1% raise, some are going to get a 69% raise. And I'm not going to go into it, I'm just listing in that respect. And I'll just let it go at that.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor, you're at the podium first.
Thanks. I was going to answer Councilman Markovich's questions regarding everybody in the budget outside of special raises, and I think there's only one special raise in the entire budget outside of the 1%. Is that a true statement? There's one special raise in the budget. The one special raise we're talking about is the position of corporate counsel. I'd like to remind the council in 2004 when I took over, the law department had 3 employees making full-time benefits, all 3. We had an assistant city attorney, we had a city attorney, and we had a corporate counsel. Here we are, 10 years later, one person fills all 3 of those positions. We took the salary that used to be offered to the corporate counsel and increased it pretty handily. But I would like to remind the council that we have one person filling in for 3 spots here. So that person's Chris Cantar. I think most of you know she does an outstanding job as our corporate counsel. I know Councilman Markovich has taken exception to that. I appreciate his vote as a councilman. He has the right to do that. I just wanted to explain the background on it. I don't think it's outrageous what she's making. I think it's in line with what she could make if she was a city attorney or a corporate counsel in other cities. So that's regarding the first one. Councilman Markovich also asked about the unions and the negotiation with regard to the contracts. We're in the middle of negotiations with the FOP, with the fire union, the Teamsters. We're looking at 3-year deals to get us back on the same track we were before last year's 1-year deal. I think it's going very positively in all those cases. One thing that we've been pushing is 2014 raise is going to be 1%. I think that the FOP, the fire union, and the Teamsters and the city employees are all anticipating a 1% increase for next year. So I don't anticipate, the only, obviously I'm sure they'd be thrilled if you went higher, Councilman Markovich, but they'll expect 1% at this point.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
as it relates to Chris Cantar, I think the question came up to her raise being the most highest. And from my observation of attending Board of Works meetings, it's double the work. Now, whether or not it's feasible for that raise to be of such, that's questionable. But what can you say? She's doing an excellent job. She's very professional, and it's quite a bit of work. And most attorneys in the private industry, the salary that she's making with the city, and I don't know if she has other jobs or not, but I know on one case you can make that with one particular case if you get the right case. So,
Thank you, Councilman.
you can question it and say, hey, do we give her a raise or we do not? But positions have been eliminated. It's more responsibility and more work for her as one person. And personally, as I stated previously, not only does she deserve a raise, but we need one too. I don't know, I can't speak for all the council people, but I know I do.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I do have to agree with Councilman Higgs. I regularly attend the Board of Works meetings. I attend all of the liquor board hearings that are relevant to Hammond, and Ms. Cantar is always there, and I've seen her in action. She's very, very good, and we are very lucky to have her. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President, outside of that raise, the city, corporate council, all raises are 1% in the budget. We're here to answer any questions if you have it.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
as it relates to the firefighters' budget, you're still in negotiations, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're not at discretion to disclose what the outcome of that budget is at this present moment?
I think we're going to reach a 3-year deal. I'm positive we're going to reach a 3-year deal with the FOP, the fire, and the Teamsters.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali?
on that, Mayor, that it'd be amended right after finalization of.
I'm sorry, Councilman.
It would be amended right after that?
The contracts,
Yes.
I believe they go before the Board of Works. Is that true? Chris? The contracts go to the Board of Works. Right, but, you know, I'm keeping in mind that every year, Councilman Spitali, I have to come to you and ask for the pay raise. So if I put too large of a pay increase in there and the council can't support that, then I'm risking a lot. So I'm going to make sure that what we put in there is something I could approach you on and not make you embarrassed.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
so actually, currently, it's 1% for police and fire.
That's what we proposed for 2014, Councilman Higgs. And the FOP, the fire union, and the Teamsters all realize that we're putting in 1%, and they've asked for more than that in other years, but they realize that in 2014, 1% is uniform rate that we put in for all employees.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Mr. Chairman, what are we voting on here right now?
The budget,
Budget?
Budget
No
1333.
amendments or anything to it? No.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski. Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
No.
Opinker.
Yes. 13-3 passes 7-2.
Ordinance 1334. I'm sorry. 1340, right. Ordinance 1340. The ordinance for the, for appropriations and tax rate.
This is for the sanitary district, correct?
No.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines?
I move to reconsider passage of 1340.
Motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Hinojosa. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines?
this is the sanitary district budget that we passed a little bit too early at the last meeting. Today was the advertised date, so I request approval of their budget.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich?
do we have anybody from the sanitary district here to explain what's going on?
Councilman
Mayor.
Markovich, I'm the mayor. I have all 4 out of 5 appointees to the sanitary district board. I'm ready to answer any questions you have. And I have experts here if you have
I
detailed
mean,
questions.
you mentioned something in the thing, it was,
The grant.
That's another ordinance that's going to come before you, a resolution that's coming about the sale leaseback, Councilman. That's coming before you in another resolution after the passage. This is, as Councilwoman Vines indicated, this is, you guys passed this budget the last meeting. However, the sanitary district advertised for today's meeting, so we need to repass it this meeting. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Is the vote on reconsideration or on pass?
Yes, reconsideration.
reconsider.
Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
I need some clarity as to exactly what are we voting on in regards to this particular ordinance.
Voting to reconsider the ordinance.
So the initial one, Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
the initial ordinance that was passed was done incorrectly, am I correct?
No.
Prematurely.
Prematurely, correct.
So that's incorrect. Okay, so now we're reconsidering the ordinance that we passed already.
Correct.
Thank you.
Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Reconsider of 1340 passes 9-0.
Now, final passage.
Well, I think after you make the motion to reconsider, then you need another.
Yes, final passage.
Okay, I move for final passage of 1340.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Higgs. Is there any discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on final passage of 1340.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. 1340 passes 9-0.
Mr. President. Ordinance 13-43, sponsored by Councilman Spitali. An ordinance fixing the salaries and wages of all city officials and employees of the city of Hammond, Indiana, other than those fixed by statute or by ordinance heretofore enacted, and fixing the effective date thereof.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
motion for final passage of 13-43.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Higgs. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
I'd like to amend in two changes on page 4. Under Motor Vehicle Highway Public Works, line item six-wheel driver, the amount will be changed, amended from $17.22 to $17.47. The second change is two rows down. Laborer will amend from 1621 to 1669. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Kowinski, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
what's the reason for the changes?
I believe it was a typo.
Mr. President,
Mr. Lindy?
Councilman Markovich, there's dual reasons. One was a typo. Also, we have the consolidation of the public works facilities, and in negotiating with the union, one of the things that they requested is there be consistency between the different trades that were going to be coming together, and that's the issue with the laborers, is to create a consistent pay raise, and it's at the request of the unions that we're making this change.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
since we're doing, the mayor doing a consolidation for 2014, I certainly would like a diagram of how that reflects and how that operates, because for a long time, it's been very hectic, and I agree with him, if something needed to be done, and I applaud his efforts in doing that. But it's been hectic calling this department, that department. Hopefully, things will get resolved, and I'm not running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get things completed and taking off work and spending time and time again over the same particular issue. So I applaud your efforts on this, because I would hope that one person would be able to take the orders and do what's necessary and get the job done. Save me a lot of paperwork and a lot of headaches.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
On the amendment,
On the amendment.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. 1343 as amended passes 9-0. Now on 1343 as written. Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa,
Yes.
Opinker,
Yes. 1343 passes 9-0.
Ordinance 13-44, sponsored by Councilman Spitali. An ordinance fixing the salaries and wages of all policemen and firemen of the city of Hammond, Indiana, other than those fixed by statute or by ordinance heretofore enacted, and fixing the effective date thereof.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
the motion for final passage of 13-44.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kolinsky. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
as I indicated earlier, I'm in the middle of a contract negotiations with FOP and the fire union. We're working on 3-year deals. 2014 in both contracts is down for a 1% pay raise, so I don't anticipate with the passage of this salary ordinance that it would conflict in any way with our negotiations.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
and if the negotiations go any further, Mayor, and for some reason the union seems to think that they want another raise beyond this, how do you fix the problem?
There's a remedy for that, for the firemen and the police officers, if that's the course of action they wish to take. But I don't anticipate that.
Any
Not
other-
at least by, I mean, I'm just gonna be open and honest, not by the police, maybe the fire.
I don't anticipate.
Neither one.
No.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 1344.
Markovich,
Yes.
Spitali,
Yes.
Vines,
Yes.
Kalwinski,
Yes.
Ulaki,
Yes.
Higgs,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Enosa,
Yes.
Opinker,
Yes. Ordinance 1344 passes 9-0.
Ordinance 13-45, sponsored by Councilman Spitali. An ordinance fixing the salaries for elected city officials for the city of Hammond, Indiana, commencing January 1, 2014. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the city of Hammond.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
move for final passage of 13-45.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kolinsky. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President, this is
Councilman
also
Spitali.
a 1% raise also for elected officials.
Any other discussion?
I make a motion to make it 3% for elected officials.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
I strongly disagree with Councilman Higgs' motion. I think that it would be a slap in the face to taxpayers. I think that 1% in light of...
Mr. President, point of
Hold on.
order.
Councilman Higgs, I'm talking.
Point of order.
Councilman Higgs.
Point of order.
Mayor has the podium.
You haven't relinquished the chair to the mayor,
I
and
did.
first it has to be a second
I
before it
did,
goes into
Councilman
discussion. No, you
Higgs.
didn't. No, you didn't. So let's be fair about it.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor, you have the podium.
I think Councilman Higgs' recommendation is ludicrous. I think it's a slap in the face to the taxpayers. I think the Hammond Council and the mayor we compensated adequately. I think that in light of the pain that the taxpayers are feeling with the payment of a local option income tax, I think that 1% is generous enough. I hope Higgs doesn't get a second on that motion, because I think it's embarrassing to even suggest that in light of what's going on.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
that's a matter of opinion, and the mayor's entitled to his opinion. But
Good.
for the job that I do in my district, I feel that 3% raise is more than feasible. I'm out there 365 days a year, giving back to the kids, giving back to every entity in this community, in my district and throughout the city. So your opinion of what you may feel for those other than me are fine. That's your opinion. But as for me, I feel the 3% raise is feasible. Now, whether or not they vote for it or not, there was never a second. That was just something I threw out there, Mayor,
You've thrown it
okay?
out a number of times, Councilman.
And I will continue to throw it out there because I work very hard for my
Well,
constituents.
maybe you should get a job in the private sector if this job.
No, I
doesn't
love
pay you
my
enough.
job.
If
And
this
you
job
may
doesn't pay
not
enough
want
money,
me
maybe
to
you
have
should-
it, but I love it.
Order.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
each and every person who works for the city of Hammond works for the betterment of the city of Hammond. Each and every one of us work our tails off for the city of Hammond. Not just one councilman, all 9 of us. Every single employee that we have here in the city of Hammond works their tail off to make the city of Hammond a better place to live. Not just one individual. Everybody would love to get more money. Everybody would love to get a 5-10% raise. Boy, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't you really feel like you were worth something if you got a 10% raise? But each and every person who works for this city, I just can't say it enough, works their tail off. People volunteer throughout this city to make it a better place to live. And to argue that one person works harder than another, that's just not right. Each and every one of us works towards the betterment of the city of Hammond. And that's what everybody who works for the city strives for. Every day they come out in the cold and the rain. They're picking up trash at 4 o'clock in the morning and getting beaten up.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Mr. President.
Councilman Higgs, do we have a second?
Mr. President,
Do we have a second on Councilman Higgs's motion? Councilman Higgs' motion fails. Any other discussion on 1345? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. 1345 passes 9-0.
Ordinance 13-46, sponsored by Councilman Hinosa. An ordinance authorizing the city controller to transfer funds from one line item to another within the Hammond Police Department's 2013 budget.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
yeah, I move for final passage of 13-46.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I'd like to be added as a sponsor of that particular ordinance. I so move.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
yeah, this is to transfer money from the capital outlay of $235,000, $156,000 to go into the Henry units to carry us out through the end of the year, and $79,000 for other services.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Ordinance 1346 passes 9-0.
Ordinance 13-47, sponsored by Councilman Spitali. An ordinance authorizing the city controller to transfer funds from one line item to another within various city 2013 budgets.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
move for final passage of 13-47.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
this is as a result of the fallout over the vetoed ordinance regarding the towing fee administrative increase. I decided to take a look at all non-reverting accounts in the city. The city controller and I sat down and identified $500,000 in non-reverting accounts that we thought was a little too much sitting in a non-reverting account, and we identified this $500,000, and this is part of this ordinance so that we could use that $500,000 as revenue towards our budget shortfall. As we all know, the budget shortfall is being gapped with casino revenue right now, so every bit of extra revenue we could bring in leaves that much more casino revenue for the infrastructure of our city. So I think this is, and it's not going to leave anybody too short-handed. These non-reverting accounts have a tendency to generate significant amounts of money if you lay them, if they sit there too long, so.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson?
speaking as one district councilman, I really appreciate that because we struggle with how we're going to get the projects done. At least I have the last 2 years, so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
not only, and I echo Councilman Emerson, not only struggling, but the reality of it is getting them done in a timely fashion. There are certain timelines in regards to getting street projects completed, designed, engineered, and moving forward and approved by the Board of Works. So it's quite costly and it's a long procedure. And that was my reasoning for saying that I applauded the mayor's efforts in consolidating the departments because for some reason, it's just been tedious and very difficult, and things that have sat on the shelf for a number of years and not been completed. Projects within my district, for whatever reason, just sitting on the shelf and not moving forward. So hopefully this will expedite and make things much more easier.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa?
I have a question on the last figure that we heard from the city controller was that now that we have the county income tax, that it was going to bring in about $8 million from the county income tax. And the last figure we heard was that the gaming money that we have, we're going to have to put $10 million. So now that we have this 500, is that figure $9.5 million, or is it lower than that? Do we?
It's going to be in that ballpark, Councilman.
About $9.5 million?
In that ballpark, yeah. It's right around there. Bobby and I argue. He's usually more accurate than me, but I'm more optimistic than him. He says it's going to be more like 11 million. I say it's going to be more like 9 million. So I use 10 because it's a round number, but it's in that ballpark, Councilman Hinojosa, and every little bit helps. This is 500,000, which gives you $50,000 more to spend in the 6th district at the end of the day, because that's 50,000 you won't be putting towards the city budget. But as a reminder, over the last 3 years, we've dissolved TIF districts in each year, and once those TIF districts are dissolved, they had revenue sitting in a district that we got to use as miscellaneous revenue into our city. We dissolved 3 districts over 3 years, used about $7 million each year. We don't have a TIF district to dissolve anymore. So the local option income tax passed at the perfect time as far as we're concerned, especially in budgeting, because if the local option income tax didn't pass, Councilman Hinojosa, we'd be looking at a bigger number than 10, a lot bigger. So.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President.
Councilman Higgs?
Mayor, what is the total estimate of revenue from the casino for a rough estimate for 2014?
Councilman Higgs, we've been looking at, when Moab opened, they were looking at about 35 million a year. When we took over, and shortly after they opened the new boat, they got up into the 40s, Councilman Higgs. Now they're back down to where they were before they opened the big boat. Bobby could probably give you a more refined answer, but they're in the $34 million mark. Is that pretty accurate, Bob? That's right. And that's a lot of money. It's revenue that comes to the city. I'd like to point out that Horseshoe's not happy with that, though. Horseshoe didn't build a big $385 million investment to make the same kind of money they were making under the old boat. So the fact is, to the city council, I know I don't have to tell you guys this, the gaming market's changed. We used to say that we were Chicago-proof. Well, the Rivers Casino and Des Plaines proved otherwise. It hurt us. We took a big hit. And it reminds us that the closer Chicago opens up a new casino to us, the more it's going to impact us. And that's why it's incumbent upon us to realize that this gaming revenue is unstable. I mean, and it's a blessing. Every year that we get this amount of money, it's a blessing, but it could go away quick. And we got to make sure if it does go away that we're ready to deal with the consequences. So I appreciate you bringing that back up, Councilman Higgs.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 1347.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Galwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs. Emerson.
Yes.
Hinojosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. 1347 passes 9-0.
President Opinker, that concludes the ordinances for final passage.
Okay, moving on to number 9, introduction of ordinances.
Item A, ordinance 13-50, sponsored by the Councilman Spitali. An ordinance appropriating the proceeds of the annual action plan and dealing with other matters pertaining to the expenditure of plan proceeds for program year 2014.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
move through first and second reading, refer to council as a whole, and there'll be a public hearing set for 11/18/13.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First and second passes.
Item B, ordinance 13-51, sponsored by Councilman Opinker. An ordinance amending ordinance number 8514, being an ordinance establishing a zoning plan for the city of Hammond in order to provide for orderly growth and development within the city, all in accordance with the comprehensive land use plan for purposes of amending various titles to incorporate provisions for the regulation of pawn shops and alternative financial businesses.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
I move that 13-51 pass through first and second reading, be referred to council as a whole with an intent to consider on 11/18/13.
Second.
Bless you. Thank you.
Motion by Councilman Kowinski, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First and second passes.
President Opinker, that concludes the introduction of ordinances.
Moving on to number 10, resolutions.
Item A, Resolution 13R29, sponsored by Councilman Spitali. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Hammond authorizing the filing of an annual action plan application and designating signatories for payment vouchers on letters of credit for the 2014 annual action plan programs.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
final passage of 13R-29.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski. Is there any discussion? Any discussion on 13R29?
President,
Councilman Spitali.
set up for CDBG funding from HUD.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Resolution 13R29 passes 9-0.
Item B, Resolution 13R30, sponsored by Councilman Hinosa. A resolution authorizing the Hammond Police Department to apply for a 2013 Indiana Criminal Justice Grant for innovative traffic safety programs.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
yeah, move for final passage of 13R-30.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Kowinski. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
this is for to apply for a grant for $7,476 for a period of 12 months. It's an initiative for traffic safety programs in the city of Hammond.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman
this
Higgs.
should be added as a sponsor of this.
Add Councilman Higgs to that as a sponsor. Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. 13R30 passes 9-0.
Item C, Resolution 13R31, sponsored by Councilman Hinosa. A resolution authorizing the Hammond Police Department to apply for a 2013 Indiana Criminal Justice Grant.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
Yeah, I move for final passage of 13R-31.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President, I'd like to be added as a sponsor of this particular ordinance.
Would you please add Councilman Higgs to that ordinance?
Mr. President.
Resolution. Councilman Hinojosa.
Yeah, this is to apply for a grant for $62,000 for a period of also 12 months for enforcement of drunk drivers and seatbelt violators.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
these are the type of grants that I look forward to seeing utilized in the city. There are so many available, and as far as cleaning up contaminated property and all types of grants that are out there, and it's just a matter of doing the research and getting it done. And so I applaud whoever came up with the bright idea of utilizing and finding out what's available and making it feasible for our citizens here in our city.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Resolution 13R31 passes 9-0.
Item D, Resolution 13R32, sponsored by Councilman Spitali. A resolution of the Common Council of the City of Hammond, Indiana, receiving petition and determining need for a facility.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
vote for final passage on 13R-32.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
the figure on this is $14.1 million for 25 years, and it's referred to as a sales leaseback. Selling to the corporate and leasing it back.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
in the first whereas, it says, whereas investigations have been conducted by the Common Council of the City of Hammond, Indiana, both before and after the introduction of the resolution of the needs of the Hammond Sanitary District. Do we have a report out on those findings?
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
Marty Wilgus is here, and he has a couple of attorneys with him. Could they step up, please?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
before he steps up, certainly, I mean, that's fine. He can give us a synoptic view of it, and I applaud his efforts because he's here. That shows that he's interested and he's committed to doing what's necessary. Last time when we approved the budget for redevelopment, guess what? I asked for the department heads, they were not here. Guess what? We had to call a special meeting because guess what? It wasn't advertised correctly. That's what I'm talking about. So I applaud your efforts for being here, showing you, that shows me that you're committed.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
if I was asking for $14.1 million, I'd be there too.
I can't do that, but
Councilman Markovich, I brought our group of people who've been working on this. We've been working on this for probably a good 4 to 5 months. The district is in need of doing some work at the site. The mayor had talked about it being tied into the basin in a roundabout way it actually is. But we have a point where we filed the lawsuits against the customer communities, as I'm sure you've been following in a paper, against Whiting, Highland, and Griffith. The rates that they pay us are far too low. The thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to pass on a rate to our citizens because they're getting hit from every angle. And we don't believe that the citizens of Hammond should be supporting a district and the customer community is kind of riding on their back. And that's what's been happening, unfortunately. So we're in a long battle, and prepared for the long battle, what we looked at, and of course I know all of you know that Dr. Unger is battling some major illness. I have a chance to communicate with him daily. He would have been with me today if it was possible for him to do that. But at the district, what we looked at is some of our basic needs that we have to have right now. And how do we get those needs? And that's how this whole proposal was brought up of a lease back on our administration building. It allows us to get the revenue quickly. It allows us to utilize very, very low interest rates. and allows us to do some things that for many, many years have just kind of been forgotten. So to kind of summarize all of why we're doing and why we're asking for today, that was the reason behind that. I'm going to let Jim Shanahan step up and kind of answer whatever questions that you have.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
I guess my question would be, and I would have tried to make a conscientious effort to tour and see exactly what it is that you guys are trying to do, and I didn't get a letter or anything, but can you give me a synoptic view of what is needed?
As we have talked about doing the basin, that contract work is started and in the process as we speak. That basin's going to be about 33 million gallons at a cost of around a little over $50 million to build. There are internal operations within the plant that we were automated probably about 15 to 20 years ago, but yet the entire plant isn't automated. So we want to look at trying to do some things to completely automate the plant, and if that can actually be done successfully with some of the other things that we have to do in updating the plant. So I guess to answer specifically, do we know exactly what we need to do? It's kind of compounded in two different ways. One is the financial needs that the plant need to have right now because of not being able to collect enough revenue to support our operations. That's really the key thing right now. And the other thing is to allow us enough time by using the $14.1 million to be able to get through these lawsuits that we have with the customer communities. And at the same time, looking at generating revenue from other sources. And we do not want that to be the residents of the city of Hammond.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
see, that was so easy for him to stand up there and just tell the councilman what exactly he's doing. That's all I requested the last meeting. Thank you so much.
Any other discussion?
So, Mr. Chairman, I asked for what is the report on the investigations and the wish list that needs to be done. And then the second question is, being that the city council is voting on this resolution, are we liable and responsible for the $14.1 million if you guys cannot come up with the funds or get the proper financing?
I'll let the legal department answer that second question, Councilman Markovich. To answer the first question, as far as I'm sorry, the first question was?
What is the wish list and the investigations that the city council had? Because I've never been there.
I'll let Jim kind of answer that. I don't know. So I guess I'll let him answer both questions.
The wish list is not really a wish list. It's specific items that need to be done so that the facility can be upgraded and continue to be utilized by the district. And what Marty talked about, the improvements, the technical improvements, the basin, those are the items that will be the improvements that will be made by the building corporation once they acquire the building and lease it back to the district. We anticipate that the lease payments will be made from future revenues, and you will not be responsible for making the payments. The district will make the payments.
Is there any kind of report specifying what needs to be done? I mean, I can recall roughly 2-3 years ago, the sanitary district came before the city council asking for roughly $1 million for backup generator sump pumps for the pumping stations because they said they didn't have any money then. We passed a $77 million bond for this lawsuit. I mean, is anything covered under that? And you're coming asking for another $14.1 million?
Well, the $77 million, Councilman Markovich, has nothing to do with a lawsuit. That has everything to do with the basin and us building the basin right now. The money that we're asking for today is to be able to take one of our greatest assets, our administration building, to be able to take a mortgage against it, to borrow $14.1 million, and to assess the improvements that we need into the plant. Now, as I indicated a little bit earlier, it's a two-phase for me, because right now, we're not collecting enough revenue to operate the plant. It's pretty simple, pretty clear. That's why we went and filed the lawsuits against the customer communities. So we have kind of a two-phase approach here. Do we have a list of items to say to you, to the council, that these are the things we want to do? The answer to that is no. But what we're asking for, and what we're trying to do, is to look at the improvements that we need to do into the plant and figure out exactly what those are, and to be able to have the revenue to do that. And unfortunately, I wish I could tell you I could come back 5 months from now, a year from now, but the way the plant is operating, and because of the fact that we do not collect enough revenue to support the operations, I have two choices. One, I come to the council and say we have to have a raise against our residents to be able to shore up the loss of revenue. Or B, I come up with a different plan that does not affect the local community, our residents. It does affect our customer communities, and a couple other things that I'm working with some of our advisors on what I can do in generating new income. It's a fact of a matter. There have been no rate increase in the sanitary district for a number of years. And like everything else, our costs continue to rise. And with what we do at that plant, it's amazing, because we don't have backed up basements as many years ago that we used to have. It's because all the things that Dr. Unger has done, and putting valves in and monitoring what contract limits are as far as heavy flow. And it's unfortunate, but we've had communities abusing that, sending us more water at peak times when the plant can't handle it. So I wish I had some of a laundry list, Councilman Markovich, to show you, but we don't, and it's all because of everything that I'm talking about. In looking at it in two ways. One, looking at shoring up our revenue needs, which is immediate, and the other thing is looking at what improvements I need to make at the plant.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
so basically what you're saying, Marty, is that it's going to be a two-phase process once it's approved. So you're going to, the first phase, you're going to try to, once you initially get the loan through, you're going to redo the whole building.
No, we're not going to redo the building, Councilman. What we're going to do is shore up our revenue base, because right now we're not collecting enough revenue.
So you're operating in the red.
You're right.
At some point, do you plan to initially make increases in terms of making the customers pay more?
That's what we're doing right now. That's why there's a lawsuit. And it's a lawsuit because it's a contract. We actually broke the contract that we have with those three communities. It's the only avenue that we had to do that.
So initially, the contract was for X amount of years, and you, okay, I understand.
25 years. It had a rate that was based on this really complex formula that was adjusted every year. It would take me 3 hours to explain to you how it works.
Right, I understand.
It had nothing.
So now what they're saying is, no, you signed this
Right.
binding agreement, and we're not gonna change it till these years.
Well, yeah, because the average rate that they're paying compared to the average rate that a resident here in the city of Hammond is paying, it's like night and day.
In essence, there's no way you can continue to operate unless you go this route.
Short term, yes.
But you're already running in the red. Realistically, there's no way you can continue if you don't do something.
Right, and this is, as we are doing many things on the front to raise revenue, this is the one that we could do immediately to shore up the gap. So we didn't come, and I'm not standing here before you tonight saying, I just want to borrow money. I'm saying we need to borrow money to get us through the short term, so that as I'm addressing the long-term needs of the plant by addressing rates from the customer communities that are way off kilter, I have enough time and money to be able to do both of those things.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, who's on the Hammond Sanitary Building Corporation?
We have that list finalized? You know, Councilman, I'm probably going to have to get you that. do know that there was a meeting for them, but there were some changes on who was going to be on that board. So the best answer I can give you right now is I'm going to have to get you that list.
Well, you know, my recommendation right here would be to table this resolution until we get the wish list, what has to be done, who is on this sanitary building corporation, because we're approving something we don't know. It's like this Pelosi, let's vote on Obamacare and worry about it later on. I don't want to do that here. You know, so that's basically what we're doing here. You're asking us to approve something we know nothing about. And his first whereas says investigations have been conducted by the city council. Nobody knows anything what's going on. And then I'm trying to be diplomatic in a sense. I don't want to ask questions because of the lawsuit, and I can't ask the questions because of the lawsuit.
That's correct.
But yet we're being kept in the dark. And I don't like no blind sides later on or anything.
Well, it's a lawsuit, Councilman, and I can't give you any more specifics than I've already laid out. I don't know what you're asking of me because pretty much I've laid out and answered every possible scenario what we're using this money for. So unless you think that we're trying to hide something or kind of go through something without being honest about, we've actually laid it out exactly with what we want to do.
I'm not saying that, Marty, but 14.1 million that you're saying to operate the sanitary district. What has to be done to operate it? There ought to be a list. There ought to be something there that says this is what we have to buy, this is what we have to do, you know? I mean, I asked a simple question, who's on the Hammond Sanitary Building Corporation? Between the three, you got nobody knows, not even one person?
Well, I don't want to tell you something that's not true, Councilman. I would
Then how
never
could
do
you
that.
expect
I
us to
would,
vote on
and
something we
so
don't
I
know
would
yet?
only appear here in front of you today with our legal counsel and tell you what I know to be the truth. What I can tell you that at the very last minute with this building corporation, there was some changes of who those people were going to be. I should let you know that the building corporation comprises 3 different individuals. It's the way the bylaws were written. And they basically will have the power, and correct me, I'll let Jim explain that because he can explain that better than I can.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
There's
The
a
re-
motion on the floor to table.
the reality of it is that Marty just got on this board the mayor just appointed him. You quiz him
Marty's
like,
Okay,
not on-
Councilman
Marty's
Higgs.
not on any board.
well, he's the director.
Order. There is a motion on the floor to table this. Do I have a second? To table this resolution fails.
You have to ask 3 times. Do it for a second.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Do I have a second? I don't have a second. Table it fails. Any other discussion?
Call for the vote, Mr. President.
Clerk, go with roll call vote.
Markovich.
No.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Henosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Resolution 13R32 passes 8-1.
Thank you.
Item E, Resolution 13R. Resolution 13R33, sponsored by Councilman Henosa. A resolution regarding Crime Watch apps.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
I move for final passage of 13R-33.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
yeah, this app came as an idea to me, mostly because of the crime that happened in Hessville, that if we had notifications on our phones, and notifications only if you want to receive those notifications on an app, and we also discussed it could probably be added to the Hammond 311 app. And I'll give you some examples. Like I gave in the back room, I received notifications from the Indianapolis Colts of changes and conferences going on. I received notifications from Freddy's Steakhouse, from Gino's Steakhouse, buy one dinner, get one free. And this would mainly be like for to receive notifications of, that the the flooding of the river is going to go over something, the crest or something, especially in major crimes like the ones that happened in Hessville, where on the fourth or fifth day, whatever it was, that the lady on the 6800 block of Nebraska was knocked over, and she wound up having a heart attack. Now, if her family, she was an elderly lady, but maybe her family would have had an app where they can sign up for and receive notifications of what's going on in Hessville. I mean, it went on for a couple days, but not enough people were notified that this was going on. So meanwhile, another person got hit, and another person got hit, and I believe we had at least 4. So that's what this is for. It's just a resolution, but hopefully it can be investigated by the IT of something they can add on to their app for the Hammond 311 or possible additional app.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion?
Call for the vote, Mr. President.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. 13R33 passes 9-0.
Item G, Resolution 13R35, sponsored by Councilwoman Vines. A resolution appointing Dan Spitali to the Lake County Economic Development Commission.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for final passage of 13R35.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Higgs. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
it's pretty self-explanatory. Councilman Spitali will be on the Lake County Economic Development Commission.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. 13R35 passes 9-0.
Item H, Resolution 13R36, sponsored by Councilman Higgs. A resolution confirming the reappointment of Alvin Cheeks as a commissioner of the Hammond Human Relations Commission of the City of Hammond, Indiana.
Mr. President, I move for final passage of Resolution 1336. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
Councilman Markovich had a question for me, but I don't know if he wants to.
I just, it was brought up in the caucus that originally this was Mayor McDermott's appointment, and Alvin was doing a good job, and the mayor recommended he be the council's appointment. That's what we're doing, and he's also the best-dressed person on that board.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. 13R36 passes 9-0.
President Opinker, that concludes the reading of the resolutions.
Thank you, Clerk Golick. Now moving on to number 11, new and unfinished business.
Item A, ordinance 13-49, sponsored by the petitioner to Sing Incorporated. An ordinance reclassifying certain lands in the city of Hammond for zoning purposes and amending ordinance number 8514, and ordinance establishing a zoning plan for the city of Hammond, including the regulation and maps to administer the zoning plan in order to provide for orderly growth and development within the city, all in accordance with the comprehensive land use plan as amended for property commonly known as 2843 169th Street, Hammond, Indiana.
Mr. President.
Councilman Hinojosa.
Yeah, I'd like to move for final passage of 13-49.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I think what's happening here, the gentleman is trying to do some upgrades for the gas station on 169th in Councilman Hinojosa's district, which is most needed, and the business has been in the community for a number of years. So I applaud their efforts, and then as I stated in caucus, if you can't find a location in the 6th, the 3rd is always open to you.
Any other discussion? Councilman Hinojosa.
Yeah, I think in the back room when we had our meeting, there was nothing but high marks for past 40 years. How the gas station is always in compliance. Everybody talked very well of the gas station that's already in existence. They're just going to expand the store and make it bigger. Myself, I talked with the owner, and he took me around the property on what they're going to do to the building by making it bigger and beautifying that corner there. Again, I congratulate you for upgrading your property.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs. Emerson.
Yes.
Hinojosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Ordinance 1349 passes 9-0. Any other new and unfinished business?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
some changes related to council meetings for November and December. I make a motion to cancel the council meetings scheduled for November and the 11th and November 25th, and to schedule one council meeting only for November on November 18. And for December, I make a motion to cancel the December 23rd meeting, which will leave us with one scheduled meeting on December 9th. I so move.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Kowinski, second by Councilman Spitali to change the meetings for November and December. Is there any discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich. Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs. Emerson.
Yes.
Hinojosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Motion passes.
Markovich, yes.
Markovich, yes. Motion passes 9-0. Any other new and unfinished business?
Mr. President,
8-0, one after.
Councilwoman Vines.
yes, I'd like to announce some upcoming Crime Watch meetings for those who wish to do good in their community, for those who wish to keep their neighborhoods safe and make their neighborhoods better. On Friday, actually, on Tuesday, October 29th, the Pulaski Park Neighborhood Association meets at 6:30 p.m. at the American Legion on Gosling. On Friday, November 1st, Irving Community Watch meets at 9:15 a.m. at Irving School. On Wednesday, November 7th, 6:30 p.m., Edison Community Watch will meet at Edison School at 6:30 p.m. On Thursday, November 8th, 6 p.m., Edison Community Watch on the Road will meet at the Golden Manor Senior Building at 6 p.m. Also on Thursday, November 8th at 7 p.m., the India Lee Crime Watch. That is at the First Methodist Church on Holman Avenue. Since that is Church Row, I should give the address. It is 6635 Holman Avenue. And that is how change happens. One gesture, one person, one moment at a time.
Any other new and unfinished business?
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
Since we last met in the 4th District, a rather notable landmark has been raised. Kenny Mays, for those of you that don't know, and not many people do not, was a strip club, gentleman's club, that has been there for many years. And it, you know, being a resident of the neighborhood, at least 20 some years, at least many years ago, Mrs. Rush, who lived a block south of me at the time, spearheaded a protest. Among her complaints at the time were the posting of the measurements of the dancers on the marquee, which prompted parents driving their children to an elementary school, which is several blocks away on the same street, to explain what those numbers meant. Also, 2 blocks from a long-standing Methodist church. Later, another church was next to it, but this is somewhat of the history. Mrs. Rush moved from Hammond. I don't know, you know, if she's still with us today. But there were many people in the neighborhood that were not happy. Now, I don't know the gentleman that owned the establishment, and this is not a Cary Nation kind of thing that I'm doing. I just know that the neighborhood wanted that gone for a long time. If it's out in a farm field, I have no problem with it. I'm not telling people what to do. But in a community with an elementary school, residents across the alley butted up against the club for years, had many stories which I won't go into tonight. Special thanks should also be given to our colleague, Councilwoman Venez, who early on got involved when there appeared to be, and I have to say that, I'm not an attorney, more than just dancing going on at the establishment. And it's her efforts and the efforts of code enforcement, the Hammond police, everyone else, that finally sent the establishment to, we hope, greener pastures. And I think it's a good thing for the city and the 4th. Thank you.
Any other new and unfinished business?
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Venez.
Everyone has heard me announce over the past couple of meetings about the trunk or treat that took place at Home Depot this past weekend. Edison Community Watch and the Eastside Community Council partnered with Home Depot on that event, and it was a huge, huge success. We saw over 500 children. Home Depot donated water, popcorn, hot dogs, s'mores. There was a jumpy house, and I really want to thank publicly Home Depot for their partnering and their community efforts. They really step up in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Any other new and unfinished business?
Mr. President.
Councilman Emerson.
As some know, November 11th is Veterans Day, and in Hammond we have the usual celebrations with one honoring veterans and one new one this year. The new one at 11 a.m. at Lyman and Douglas actually starts about 10:30. The dedication of a new memorial being built there. Home Depot is involved in that, but that's for another time. So they do help in the community is what I'm saying. I'm agreeing. That will be the dedication of the new memorial to Iraqi vets. The only one in the area, by the way, at 11 a.m. Also, I think simultaneously, 11 a.m. at Harrison Park, the traditional Veterans Day honorarium. And I want to say 11 a.m. at Hessville Park, but 173rd and Kennedy, but I don't want to hold that time because I'm not sure about that. If someone wants to call me, they can. I'll find out exactly when that is. Thank you.
Any other new and unfinished business?
Yes, Mr. President, one more.
Councilwoman Venez.
Since June, Edison Community Watch has been collecting plastic bottle caps. plastic bottle caps of all sorts, laundry detergent, water bottles, anything. And we were working with the Golden Manor Senior Apartments, and they were participating in a contest that the Lake County Solid Waste District had, that if you collected 400 pounds of plastic bottle caps, you would get a park bench made out of recycled material. Well, the seniors collected not only 400 pounds, but they collected 800 pounds. So they qualified for 2 of the recycled park benches. They did receive their first one on Thursday, and I have to say it's beautiful. And congratulations to the seniors. Congratulations to the Edison neighborhood for really coming together and supporting the seniors. So as we always say at Edison Community Watch, community is not just about me, it's about us. And we really proved that with this effort. Thank you.
Any other new and unfinished business? New and unfinished business is now closed. Public expression, our first speaker will be Mr. George Stoya.
George Stoya. Before I get started, I just wanted to submit for clarification. I was somewhat offended by Mr. Weiglos's presentation. Specifically, twice he mentioned, I let it go once, but twice he says that the city of Hammond sued the cities involved in this Hammond Sanitary District lawsuit. No, Hammond was sued. Let's get that straight. I don't know why he resorted to that. He did it once, I can say, in a misstatement. Twice? I feel like he's trying to pull the wool over my eyes. Secondly, I don't think you ever got a straight answer on where the report was. Given the lawsuit, I kind of, when I think about it, it's more like a legal position instead of a factual one, but I'm just mincing here. What I'm up here for is I want to seek clarification for the mayor's statement on ordinance, what I believe is ordinance 1347. Did he renege on his veto, I guess, for want of a better term? I don't know how, or nullify it in some way, such that those things that he vetoed concerning paying extra fees to get police reports and stuff, is that back in now? Are those fees and the raises in those fees to get like a towing report, police report, are those back in there with respect to the non-reverting funds?
The only thing he vetoed was that towing ordinance increase, because those funds weren't going to the general fund, but going to the police.
Oh, okay. Well, I
don't think there was anything about the
okay, all right,
police reports or whatever. That's
yeah. I mean, well, from where I'm sitting, it was rather cryptic because I had insufficient context. Thank you. That's all I needed to know.
Alvin Cheeks, I believe you left the house. I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski.